it's going to be broken for everyone to see. And so that was the way she lived. And other than that, she taught me to cook, to clean, to make a fire, to obey and obey, literally breaking my spirit as a human being, as a female, to submit to the code of the clan. This was then augmented by Islam, our religion. And in the 70s, again, when I go to school, the first school I go to is a Marxist school. I know what Marxist indoctrination is because I went to that school from the time I was 5 years old and 6 years old, and we were taught to sing praises to our president. If you came to Mogadishu in the 1970s and the 1980s, you would find huge pictures of Marx, Lenin, Engels, and our president, Mohammad Siad Barre. And we were taught to revere that, to reject our clan morality, to reject our faith, and to worship the state. And so that was my early years, and then we moved to Saudi Arabia. We didn't move. My mother sort of fled to join my father, who had escaped from prison. And Saudi Arabia at the time that is 1970s, Sharia law. And I remember with my little sister and brother, when the first time we went outside, we found women covered from head to toe in black. One of my childhood striking, and it's always there, is that there are these beings that are moving. They seem to be floating around. And as children, we're looking at them. We totally share a faith with them, but we didn't realize that. Suddenly the hand moves to grab a child, and we think, oh, they move. Or they have a face, or they talk, and very quickly I realized growing up in this country meant that is what it was going to be like to be a girl and a woman, to be covered from head to toe, complete shrouding, complete erasure and disappearance. I thank the Lord that in that year, we were only 12 months. My family was only for 12 months in Saudi Arabia when we were deported. And that is something I can only be grateful for, that we were deported, because had I grown up in Saudi Arabia, I would have been one of those shrouded beings.
Wow.
And then I move forward and I go to Ethiopia, which was also a Marxist country. I think we are threatened again by Marxism, so we'll get to it later in our conversation. But we move on. But it was my first encounter with people who are not Muslim. And what is important in my process was looking at my mother and my grandmother and the way they reacted to the Ethiopians. My mother and grandmother were hostile. It's what you guys call racist. They had only prejudice and bad things against these people. But the Ethiopians welcomed us. They were warm and they were wonderful. And all I remember, in fact, very briefly going to school in Ethiopia, was maybe a small slice of what it was to be a child, to be carefree, to run around and rubbish around. And then very quickly, in 1980, we moved to Kenya, and Kenya was a former British colony. That's where I learned to speak English, and we lived there for a decade. And it's in that decade that I made sense of the world through education. One thing I'd like to share with you is my father's role in the family. Even though he was absent, and he left us 1 year, he went away in 1981-82, once he established us in Kenya. But he insisted to my mother that his daughters go to school. My mother was completely committed to the clan honor and shame paradigm, which was, these girls are going to become good wives later on. He said, I want them to go to school. I don't want them to be illiterate like you. I want them to learn to read and write. And she held before him and she said, you know, when they get into puberty, they could bring shame upon you. And he said, I will take a risk. And she said, you will take the risk, but you are not here. So it will be my problem. I don't think they should go to school. My father said to my mother, I will curse you to hell, and you will dwell in hell if you take my daughters out of school, because I am the male of the family, and the Muslim God listens only to men. And for that, I'm also infinitely grateful.
Yes, absolutely. I think hearing your story, it would be easy to think of you sort of resisting the Muslim faith